Welcome back. My name is Simbalaji Charles Kianga. So let's talk about that story this morning. I'm going to jump quickly into that. Now, research is still ongoing on the possibility of mixing different COVID-19 vaccines, either to boost immunity or navigate the biting vaccine shortages in the parts of the world. Now, a study has shown that a combination of AstraZeneca and the Pfizer vaccines creates a robust immune response. Professor Matthew Snape from the Oxford Vaccine Group said that people who have been double dosed with the AstraZeneca vaccine could have a strong immune response if they were given a different jab as a booster. Now, Professor Snape said that the mix and match approach may result in additional protection against the coronavirus. He made the comments following results of a clinical trial comparing the current UK strategy of giving 2 doses of either the AstraZeneca or the Pfizer vaccines against a combination of the 2 jabs. Now, according to Sky News, results of the study showed that people who received the AstraZeneca vaccine first, followed 4 weeks later by a Pfizer dose, produced antibody levels 9 times higher than those given the 2 doses of AstraZeneca jab. Sky News further says volunteers who were given a Pfizer first and AstraZeneca second had antibody levels 5 times higher than those who received 2 doses of the Oxford vaccine. Now, 2 doses of the Pfizer jab produced the highest antibody levels, but the T-cell response was higher in people receiving the combination of the vaccines. Just before we jump into those questions this morning, let's look at where we are in terms of the fatality rate and the positivity rates in the country. If we're going to look at that, then you will see that yes, we have still in that double-digit figure. But what has been going on under this number is that the Ministry of Health has been going back into facility audits for us to get this number. Let's cross over and see where we are in terms of positivity rates this morning. And yes, we are coming from the backdrop of a 9.5 positivity rate in the last 24 hours, which is exactly why the president has gone into that address that extended those measures in the country. This morning, we are joined by Dr. Victor Ngani, who is the head of critical care at RFH Healthcare. Dr. Ngani, good morning, sir. Yes, Dr. Ngani, can you get me? All right, we seem to have a technical issue with that this morning. I will beg so that we keep on waiting for it. Dr. Ngani, can you get me? Oh, what a pity. All right, let's hold on to that story and then move into the next conversation this morning, because yes, we are ready with a Sid Shah this morning, and that is essentially on the timeline that is now ready for the pay cuts in terms of allowances. Dr. Ngani, can you get me?
Yes, I am. Apologies for that network issue.
Fantastic. We lost you there for a moment. So let's address those 3 very important questions this morning there from Dr. Ngani. Number 1, what is the allowed timeline medically, therefore, Dr. Ngani, between the first dose and the second dose? Because what we do know now, this timeline is shifting, and there are medical experts who are saying the more the delay, the better immune response should you get the second one.
Yes, thank you, Simba. And it's one of those things that seems to be very politically convenient. Because
yes,
you see, the world is having a big issue accepting vaccines, and then all of a sudden you're having these conversations that are saying that if you take a long time between jabs, then you're even better off. But in fact, that's what we are seeing. The truth is that the studies showing that the longer the time between vaccines, the stronger the immunity. And this is what has been demonstrated over and over again. And so currently there's a study saying 12 weeks is far better than the initial 4 weeks. And there's a new study that's going to come soon that's looking at vaccinating the time of the first vaccine. And we are quite excited about those kinds of discussions. So I think scientifically, despite the political expediency, it's prudent to accept a longer time, and let us not be worried that it's taking a long time to get the second jab.
Yes. So what is the allowed timeline, Dr. Ngani? Because someone is going to ask you directly, how far can I go without receiving the second dose?
Currently, we are comfortable with 12 weeks, but in fact, the latest guidelines are suggesting that it could go as far as 40 weeks. So currently, the current recommendation stands at around 12 weeks. It used to be between 8 and 12, but now actually 4 weeks earlier than 8 and 12. But right now, 12 weeks is a region where we say, okay, this is where we want to be getting this.
Is this a standard timeline, especially when it comes to administering vaccines, or this is just the COVID-19 vaccines that have been given this timeline, Dr. Ngani?
This is the COVID-19 vaccine, and not all of them. You will note, for example, the J&J vaccine, the Johnson's vaccine, you only get a single shot. You
Yes.
do not get multiple shots. So the different vaccines have different timelines. You can get a booster dose a month later, others you get different timelines. But for COVID-19 vaccine, this is what has been shown to work.
Pretty much. Let's move into the second question that you're going to run into as well, Dr. Ngani. They're saying mixing of the vaccines could be of help, especially when it comes to boosting that response. So now, where are we with this research, Dr. Ngani? And I'm going to ask you the same question as well. This one, is it just out of COVID, or again, for other ailments, you can actually mix your vaccines?
Well, it's in the context of COVID-19 that we're coming across this mixing of vaccines for the very first time, because we've never had vaccinations at this scale. We have never had vaccines where people would need a second vaccine. In fact, in COVID itself, initially we strongly recommended that if you get the first jab being AZ, then your subsequent jabs must be AZ and so on. Mr. Simba, is my audio clear? Because
Yes, but turn out what almost there. It's workable. Let me say that.
All right.
Yes.
So can be the same as the first. But then there have been more studies around that, and currently the data confirms that you're actually better off getting two different doses, two different types of vaccine, because the variants coming up, but also the immune response is different. Around this, if you look at the AstraZeneca vaccine, the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, they're what are called virus vector vaccines. So what we're doing is that we are putting some coronavirus material inside the virus that causes a common cold, called adenovirus, and then we inject this in a person. The problem with that is the body will also create what are called antibodies or some immunity against the adenovirus itself, the vector itself. And so what is coming up is what is called vector immunity.
Yes.
Where your body is fighting the actual delivery mechanism of the vaccine. And so your immune response is reduced. And therefore it's very hard to have multiple doses of the same thing. And therefore this is why you have a lot of advantages when you get into the RNA vaccine, which is where the Pfizer vaccine is, and also the Moderna vaccine. And perhaps the immunity is multiple times higher. And so yes, in a nutshell, it's safe and probably better to get two different sets of vaccines as opposed to a single one.
Pretty much. Another question that is very important, Dr. Ngani. It's been almost 2 years now since we sort of got into this COVID-19 season. Now, this is a question you're going to run into as well. I've not been infected, and chances are that I've been exposed, probably been a carrier, and my body is okay with it. What is my risk exposure between this year and last year? And if I've not had any symptoms, Dr. Ngani, should I go for that vaccine? Or could I be saying, well, my body can actually now be able to fight the COVID-19 pandemic if the numbers are anything to go by?
Well, I would strongly urge anybody out there who has access to a vaccine to get vaccinated.
Yes.
The impact of not getting vaccinated is quite high. The risk is high as well. And what is called natural immunity that you may acquire from having gotten infected, how long it lasts is not clear, and how strong the immunity is also not clear. And then there's an issue of emerging variants, and therefore it's super important for anybody who can get vaccinated to get vaccinated. The question of not having gotten symptoms, not having been exposed, I think that is misconception. There is a group of people who have no symptoms when they get COVID-19, and there's still a big population that has not got COVID-19. And so these people are still at risk. And then there's a new emerging conversation, and Simba will be talking about it in future, the long COVID.
Yes.
And long COVID are symptoms that occur much, much later, more than 12 weeks after. And it doesn't matter how mild the symptoms were. You could have been completely asymptomatic and you present the disastrous symptoms way after you recovered from COVID. And therefore, the safest thing to do is to prevent COVID-19 in the first place, get vaccinated.
Pretty much. Dr. Ngani Victor, that is what we have for you this morning. Those are the questions that are burning right now, and thank you very much for making them clear this morning.
Thank you, Simba.
Anytime. All right, let's move on to the last one this morning, where Treasury has finally given a date to IMF for when civil servants will start to face the pay cuts in allowances in the next 6 months to June next year, as part of Kenya's commitment to the International Monetary Fund, IMF, to lower the public sector wage bill. Now, the Treasury reaffirmed that the reviews will be met before the country gets into the new financial year. As part of the meeting, the conditions for the 261 billion shillings loan agreement that Kenya has inked with a multilateral lender. Now, the reforms, which will run until 2025, will limit the civil servants' prospects of better pay and job reviews at a time when the country is going through the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, civil servants expect allowances like entertainment, responsibility, medical and utility to be chopped in the move by Treasury to conform to the requirements by IMF. Now, the state aims to set the ceiling of allowances at a maximum of 40% of a public worker's gross pay, which will see the country move from the current model that sees them take home up to 259% of the wages. Fine, let's look at that wage bill trend all the way from 2015 to 2019 has same conversation. We are not bringing it down. 2015 to 2019, you will see we are talking about bringing it down, but it keeps on hitting us left, right, and center. What we're trying to manage at least two lower levels is our recurrent expenditure, which we're going to look at right now again, which you will see as from 2020 to 2021, we try to move it from 10 to 5 in terms of base. That's exactly where we are this morning. Good. Let's cross over to Sid Shah. Sid, if you look at that trend that we're showing this morning, that managing the wage bill, especially for the public sector in this country, has been a problem for the government. They have the Salaries and Remunerations Commission that says, well, we are trying to bring it down, but the data says different. We have to wait until IMF comes in to give us the direct places to hit to get it under control. What do you read into that, Sid?
I mean, this is a move first, I think, that we should all welcome. It's high time that, government should not be the most lucrative employer in town.
Yes.
If anything, you're doing service to your country. So when you're doing service, you shouldn't be expected to be paid exorbitant amounts of money. So, I mean, the move from the IMF and forcing imposing government conditions on government as a part of this loan that they've disbursed. I think this is something that we should all, as Kenyans, welcome. If we look at it, and as you've correctly mentioned, we have 247 allowances that civil servants get paid, and it's just ridiculous when that 247 allowances account for close to 250% of the gross pay of the civil servants. I mean, Simba, I mean, if me and you were to get paid an extra 250% of our salaries, I think, life would be a lot more.
Life will be good.
Yeah, so I mean, this is something that we should all welcome.
Yes.
Good. In fact, the think tank, the Kenya Institute of Public Policy Research, have actually suggested that the allowances should be capped at actually 25% of the gross pay instead of 40%, as proposed by the Salaries and Remunerations Commission. And if you look at this whole thing, Simba, I mean, these are part of a raft of conditions imposed by the IMF, and it's not only this. We've seen that there's been a condition to review most of the state-owned enterprises, including Kenya Airways, Kenya see, IMF forced the government to roll back on the tax cuts that were introduced during COVID-19, and that's why income tax and everything has gone back to what it was. IMF are trying to impose conditions to tame graft and corruption in our country, and you must have seen this in the headlines, whereby they've actually given a date for the government to name the COVID-19 millionaires and billionaires, people who've made money out of this unfairly, illegally, and so on. If you look at the 2021-2022 finance bill, there's something whereby the government is trying to introduce e-procurement,
Yes.
and ensure that under the e-procurement model, any company that contracts with this any state agency will be required to reveal the details of who the ultimate beneficial owner of that company is. A failure to which they will be locked out of the whole tendering system. So I mean, all these measures, even though it's taken not self-realization from the government, but an external lender, like IMF, to come and impose these conditions, I think this is something that all Kenyans should welcome. And as a result of this, the Treasury has committed to the IMF to reduce, the wage bill to GDP ratio by almost 4.5% year on year till 2024. So this is all something I think is good, and let's hope we stick by these conditions, because if Kenya actually breaches this deal with IMF would be off, and it would not also look good on an international perspective for Kenya to be defaulting on conditions or breaching conditions imposed as a part of a loan deal with the IMF.
Yes. But Sid, another question around this area is this. Is this enough for us to see now the wage bill in the country come down? Is that enough, or there are other places that Treasury would look at right now and hit it now as they try and manage it as well?
I mean, it's a starting point. It's better than us having an upward trend. It's better to be on a downward trend.
Yes.
So as a starting point, I mean, this is a very good move. And as I keep repeating, we should all welcome this. It's enough. Is from 250+% to a meager 40%. I mean, there is significant reduction. So if your wage bill is going to drop by close to 20-25%, I mean, that's something that will benefit the country. We automatically will get more money for the spending on development. Helping impose measures that will improve economic growth in our country. And this is, reduction of the wage bill on its own is not going to be enough. It's not the only austerity measure government can take during a fiscal consolidation effort. We've seen it in the finance bill, whereby government is trying to expand the tax base by two ways. One is imposing VAT on goods that were previously exempt or zero-rated, for example, like bread and other basic products. Funding certain taxes like the digital service tax, by making sure this would include supplies made over the internet or an electronic network. So, when we expand the tax base, revenues increase and our overall deficit would sort of reduce. And another big area would be, clearing pending bills by state-owned agencies, county governments, and the national government to small, medium enterprise. And what that will help do is open up liquidity for these businesses. And one thing I would commend the CS for having done during the budget speech was he actually requested Parliament to assist in the enforcement of Article 225 of the Constitution, which provides for the national government to temporarily suspend transfers of payments to county governments that actually fail to comply with this directive of clearing pending bills. So I mean, all these measures, if we consolidate everything, let's hope, and as I always say, it's good to be optimistic. Let's hope that track for economic growth and recovery.
Pretty much. Said, last question. When you look at this, you and I will look at it from outside and say, well, that is good news. We're trying to bring it down. Is that another side to the coin? That once you have, let me just go through a list of those allowances that they expect to start getting cut as from next month. Number one, entertainment cut. We do have medical cut, utility cut, and also responsibility cut as well. Those are the ones that are leading that area. What is the ripple effect of having this sort of reforms within the public sector?
Of course, there would be a ripple effect. It reduces spending power of people in government. But at the end of the day, Simba, as I've said, it should not be government spending this type of money.
Yes.
It should be us, the private sector, who should have the purchasing power to go out there, spend on entertainment, spend on medical, and pay your utility bills. So if you look at it from that perspective, these are allowances that, yes, they would contribute to the economic growth by supporting businesses in the entertainment sector, medical sector, etc. But to what extent, I would say it is insignificant. We know Kenyans still have to spend generally, so you have a larger population spending probably less amounts, but if you look at it, as you always say, volumes beats, the mass will always have it at the end of the day. And another big allowance I think that is under review is the per diem or daily subsistence allowance, and that's something that takes up a huge chunk of the allowances paid to them. So if you look at the overall draft, I think we are headed in the right direction.
Pretty much. Sid, thank you very much for creating time this morning, sir.
Thank you so much.
All right. That's exactly how we come to the end of a business this morning. Taking back and all the other guests we've had this morning at Metropole TV KE, on YouTube at Metropole TV. Once you're there, we appreciate if you subscribe and leave us a comment. Thank you very much. Good morning.